The Board of Trustees of Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District is now convened in a special call meeting on Thursday, June the 28th, 2012, in the boardroom of Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Instructional Support Center, 10,300 Jones Road, Houston, Texas, at 6 p.m. I want to welcome the members of our audience to this meeting of the Board of Trustees. As the Cypress-Fairbanks Board of Trustees, we are here to set goals, listen to reports from the superintendent, approve budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and make policy for the district. It is not the role of the board to make day-to-day operational decisions. The management and day-to-day operations of the district are the responsibility of the superintendent. We have policies and procedures in place to resolve concerns and issues. This is a public meeting of the Board of Trustees, not a meeting of the public. Prior to this meeting, board members received information related to items on tonight's agenda. Agenda items will not necessarily be handled in the order listed on the notice. The meeting is open to all who wish to attend and hear the matters discussed. During the course of this meeting, the board may determine that a closed session is necessary. In that event, the board will meet in closed session to consider matters duly posted for this meeting as permitted by section 551.071 to 551.084 inclusive of the Texas Government Code. These proceedings will be rebroadcast throughout the month on Channel 16 and available as video on demand on the website. For the tape to adequately reflect the proceedings, I respectfully ask that you please refrain from talking while others are speaking and that cell phones are turned off or in silent mode. I just did mine, so everybody should. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening and for your interest in Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District. Tonight, our CFTV student crew are made up of Jordan O'Neill, Jersey Village High School, class of 2009, A.J. Gonzalez, Jersey Village High School, Victoria Rojas, Jersey Village High School, Paige Parker, Cypress Creek, Shane O'Neill, Jersey Village High School. Faculty advisors are Cindy Stoker and Jana Bullock, and we appreciate them coming out in the summer. Now we will move on to the special recognitions portion of the agenda. Well, first, are we reading the vision and the mission tonight? Because I don't see it on there. Okay. Okay. We're just going to do it by memory. Are y'all ready? No, I'm kidding. We're going to move on to the special recognition portion of the agenda. The board will recognize the Cypress Ranch High School baseball team for winning the state championship. Mr. Peel. Hey.
Mr. Covey, Board of Trustees, Dr. Henry, it is a pleasure to present to you this evening students who have distinguished themselves in athletics. As you just said, state baseball 5A champions, Cypress Ranch. At this time, I'd like to recognize, have the head coach come up here, John Pope, and say a few words about John. John, if you come on up. John has been coaching 15 years. 10 of those years have been in Cy-Fair ISD. He went to Cypress Ranch the year we opened the school and has done an outstanding, fantastic job. In only 3 varsity seasons, these three young men plus the coaching staff won a state championship, which is very, very unusual. And it's a great accomplishment. And on behalf of the athletic department and everyone else, congratulations, John. Congratulations to your team. This time, John will introduce the players. Some are not with us this evening, but we will still call their names.
Thanks, Coach. Senior Leon Bird, Senior Dalton Lemoyne, Junior Austin Strickland, Junior Ryan Albright, Sophomore Dalton Stark, Junior Hunter Cleophas, Senior Bryce Stark, Junior Hernan Herrera, Sophomore Corbin Martin, Senior Zach Bragg, Sophomore Chase Spears, Junior Zach Brosh, sophomore Tyler De Leon, senior Grant Slaughter, senior Corey Hornberger, senior Justin Monsour, sophomore Derek Dickerson, junior Jonathan Whitley, sophomore Bryce Stark, senior Zach Smith, junior Spencer Salone, and freshman Ryan Leftwich. I'd also like to recognize my coaching staff, my varsity assistant coach, Kip Pridgeon, my JV coach, Charles Hoffman, and my sophomore coach, Scott Platterter. Thank you very much for having us. Thank you.
At this time, we'd like all the parents, I believe you just stood up, but if you'd stand up again, we'd like to recognize all the parents, please. If you will stand again, I appreciate it. Also, Principal Mr. Bob Hull is here, and any other administrators. Again, thank you for recognizing this outstanding group of young men. We're very, very proud of them as always. Thank you again very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Peel. Before y'all leave, I just want to tell you what a great job that y'all did. We are extremely proud of you. To have done that in 3 years is phenomenal. To have done it with Coach Pridgeon on your team is even more phenomenal. Because his mother tells me he can't get a date, so I'm just real... Anyway, we just... I'm just kidding. I've known Kip since, I don't want to tell how long I've known him. But anyway, Coach Pope, that's a wonderful job, and we're very proud of all of you. And Dr. Henry wants to say something?
Yeah, just very quickly, I had the opportunity to see these young men play several times, and I was at the state tournament for the semi and finals. And although I was really, really pleased to see how well they played on the field and how they performed, and how many people said how well coached the team was, and you could see that as evidenced by their play. But the most impressive part was how good a sportsmen they were. They really represented their families, their community, and this school district with just class the whole weekend. So I was really proud of that. Y'all were real easy to pull for. Thank you.
We're going to take a 5-minute break because some of us want to come down and shake your hand, and then you gentlemen can go. I know you're studying for finals and stuff, so. Yeah. Okay, a 5-minute break. Okay. This might be a place where we might have board comments, so what I thought we might do tonight is, this is Dr. Henry's birthday, and he's 39 plus, whatever that is. Yeah. So I thought we ought to just at least sing happy birthday to him in a great pitch. Are y'all ready? Everybody join me. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Dr. Henry. Happy birthday to you. And Gary, you can remove that from the tape if you want to.
You mean to tell you what my wish is?
What's that? Never to do that
A short
again?
board meeting.
That's my wish too. We got the same wish.
Okay, the board will now review and discuss the following action items. Action items on consent. The board will consider awarding bids and contracts and are authorizing purchase orders for the following items. Athletic and all activity student accident insurance renewal year 2 of 3. Cafeteria tables, departmental work vehicles, electrical supplies, food service equipment, general liability and school professional liability insurance, licensing fees, hardware, software maintenance for student and finance systems, network backup, police radios, Read 180 Enterprise Edition to Next Generation Upgrade Package, RICO copier contract, school buses, software licensing fees for Infomix and Cognos, Xerox copier contract. Do we have any questions? Mr. Jackson.
And I'll talk fast so that maybe we can get out a little faster. First, on the legal liability insurance, what are the limits on that policy?
For the general liability, that includes personal injury and liability coverage, it's $1 million per occurrence. The school professional legal liability is $2 million per occurrence and $2 million annual aggregate. And the increase for the sublimits to the sexual misconduct claims endorsement is $2 million per occurrence and $2 million annual aggregate.
Thank you. On the Read 180 contract, which is for approximately $875,000, I'm a big fan of the program. I know that Don and Bob and I all went over to see it firsthand. Having said that, we still have to ask some fairly basic questions. First, is the program effective? Do we believe it's effective? Secondly, if it is effective, is this approach better than other alternatives at the same price? The third question is, once again, if it's effective, are there other better programs at a higher price? And then last, I noticed that this says we're moving from the Enterprise Edition to the Next Generation. Is this merely a program update, or is it actually a different level of software?
Actually, before we even brought Read 180 on, we researched several programs, and we were looking for a program that, first of all, was research-based, and that would be able to provide our students with accelerated instruction and accelerated gains in reading. And as we did that, for Read 180 was the one that rose above the rest. It's also a program that some of you are familiar with, the International Center for Leadership and Education, Dr. Daggett's group. It's one of the very few programs that they actually endorse for reading. So we did a lot of research and again looked for something that was research-based. The program is based on Lexiles, so reports Lexiles as far as gains in reading for students. In Sci-Fair, our students gain approximately 2 grade levels of growth each year with Read 180. So the Lexile levels are pretty rapidly increasing. As you know, we have the program in 4th grade and 5th grade, and actually all the way up to 10th grade, and it is an intervention program for struggling readers. It is an upgrade. The Next Generation is an upgrade. And actually 2 years ago, it's a Scholastic product, came to talk to us about the upgrade. And our teachers were very excited about it because everything regarding Read 180 now is connected to the upgrade. There's it's a book called an R book. It's kind of like a textbook. And so we have to, we have to order that textbook every single year. It's consumable. But the textbook is based on the upgrade, the new generation. So for the last 2 years, the teachers have struggled with going through it and being able to use it and be able to figure out what's in the program, what's not in the program because of the upgrade. Some other things that are very key and important to the upgrade is it is now online, so our students can actually read and use the system online as well as the parents. And with any struggling student, any additional support that they can get in reading is essential. It's critical. So that's a huge piece. Another piece also is that it is more rigorous. So the content in there is much more rigorous than the current system. The students read, or the reading for the students provided on level. But with the new upgrade, they read on-level text that stretches them through the text to the next grade level and even higher. So they're slowly stretching them so that we can get them up to the grade level where they need to be. And then finally, the probably last major upgrade is the dashboard. There's a dashboard in place now with the next generation where when the teacher opens the system, she immediately sees all the data that Read 180 produces, and there's a lot of data for them to use. And that data tells them everything from the frequency of the usage, are they on target with how much technology is being used, but it also tells them where the child is at. And it even groups kids. So it might group 4 kids who are struggling with main idea. And then it tells them, these 4 kids are struggling with main idea. Here are some lessons you can go to that you can do to help support the kids. And all the teacher has to do is press a button that takes them right to those lessons and those activities. So it differentiates instruction for the students as well.
Excellent, thank you.
Anyone else have any other questions? Ms. Hartley?
When I was visiting the schools, I saw a lot of Read 180 programs, and I like the flexibility, if lack of a better word, that one school would handle it one way, group a whole classroom. One school would do it another way, just do small groups. And so I figured that will only be enhanced with this upgrade.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Jackson?
Yes. School buses, did we bring that one into this one, or is that?
No, it's in here.
Okay. On the school buses, we have a contract for almost $2.4 million. Very quickly, what is our school bus replacement administrative policy? I know we don't have a board policy on it. That's the reason why I refer to it as an administrative policy. Is the scheduled replacement of the buses consistent with that policy?
I'm going to defer to Harold on that question.
Mr. Jackson, thank you. As we wrote to you in February when you raised this, the 2007 bond issue, we replaced buses that were 20 years and older. We're comfortable operating buses in the 15, 16, 17-year range. This level of investment is for growth and not for replacement. We have enough headroom or operating capacity to carry us through the next couple of years in that 15 to 17 range. But as we chatted, I think earlier, we talked to the board about a bond issue, or operating funds are going to need to support some replacements 2 or 3 years from now.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll just share one more thing, just in terms of 17-year range for the community and everyone. Our buses are covered, we maintain them well, and we think this extends this notion of 12 to 15 year that may be suggested by the Legislative Budget Board to really 16 or 17 for us.
Well, and I suspect that's yet another reason why our cost numbers on transportation are so much better than any of our peer districts.
They're declining, and yeah, thank you.
On the, we have a network backup contract for $795,000. Question is, why is this necessary? Basically, what is it for, and why are we paying for it from bond funds instead of M&O?
I'll respond to most of those. The network backup system backs up the entire data store for our entire district, which means student records, student products, everything that's stored on our network is needed to be backed up by the system. The present system is 8.5 years old, a little bit long in the tooth, and it is end of life, what they call end of life, so we cannot obtain maintenance on it. So we're running this thing with hope. We can get maintenance if we can find an engineer that can recall how to fix that older piece of gear. So we are in need of this backup. With respect to funding, we've typically funded in all of our bond programs replacements for aging technology, and this is consistent with that.
Does this give us all the backup that we would want, or are we still left with a wish list for additional backup that currently we cannot afford?
I think we're positioned well, notwithstanding there's a dramatic growth in the use of data, the industry nationwide. Data, big data, and the notion of loss of data is not as fashion, it's reality. I think we can manage our data within the envelope of this system that we're proposing to the board. And we've structured it such that we're out of the tape business. We're not rolling data to tape anymore. We're copying it to hard drives for faster recovery times and more disaster protection.
In your estimate for this, do you have an idea of how many years this will carry us?
We're at 8 now. I mean, I think we could get 5 out of this for sure, at a minimum, given the amount of data that we have and the compression technologies that are going to be afforded in this solution.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Can I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Okay. Do I have a second?
We're all consensus.
All in favor, raise your right hand.
All consensus.
It's unanimous. Thank you, Donna.
I thought these were on the consent agenda.
I did too.
No, we're doing them,
Doing it individually.
okay. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Marney, I'm just double checking. These are all need to be taken separately.
Yes, which is what I was whispering to Stuart, because he was asking, he was kind of asking me about the difference in why we...
Asking the same question.
Yes, he was asking the same question. And what I was sharing is that we did not have a consent agenda, because typically what goes on a consent agenda, according to our practice, is, you wanted a yes or no, I can tell from Dawn's face, but that it's either going to be one of two things that are routine, Dawn's going, but things that are routine or things that you have already discussed and you have moved to consent. So since this is a meeting without a workshop, you'll have an individual motion on each.
Thank you, Marnie. Thank you,
Yes.
Lotta. The board will consider approving a resolution to continue the residence homestead exemptions for individuals residing in the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District for tax year 2012. Questions only. Do we have questions on this? Ms. Woodall.
Hello, Stuart. As I like to kind of review things whenever we talk about exemptions, I just have a couple of thoughts, and I'd like you to kind of give me your reflections. Number one, just a short discussion about the lawsuit and how we can anticipate that affecting the district finances in the next few years. We've made lots of cuts in the last few years, majority of cuts last year. Do we need to begin considering whether we should start looking at, in the coming year, taking part of the homestead exemption, the optional homestead exemption, and anything else that might affect our decision on this agenda item?
That's a great question, and it probably involves a workshop in itself in terms of strategizing, what we do in the future as it relates to the impact on Cy-Fair of the of the lawsuit and the results of that. But just to review that, I think that there's a trial date set for October 22nd on that lawsuit. It's being heard by Judge Dietz in Austin, who is the same judge that heard the West Orange Cove lawsuit that was filed back in 2005 or 2004, resolved in 2005, I believe. There are 4 major lawsuits, of which one of those we have joined, obviously. And I understand that Judge Dietz is going to combine the arguments that are similar in all of those 4 lawsuits. And so what we expect is a 6-week-long trial that hopefully will end prior to the legislative session starting in January, although that's not a guarantee, obviously. But even if whoever prevails, whether it's the plaintiff or the defendant in that case, we're expecting an automatic appeal to the Texas Supreme Court. So I would suspect that with the session starting in January, that the legislators would not put on as a priority anything to address school finance until the Supreme Court makes a ruling on the constitutionality or the results of that district court decision. So what we could be facing is possibly no action taken in the 2013 legislative session, and possibly not until, unless there's a special session, but possibly not until the 2015 legislative session to resolve school finance. So that's kind of what we're looking at in the future. Our options are, as they impact Cy-Fair, obviously we hope that the results are that it is a favorable decision that would impact and benefit Cy-Fair, and that it would address all of the claims that are made in the lawsuit that we have joined. What we hope that is that a new finance system is developed that would be adequate to fund the increasing demands of the legislature on student accountability, as well as the mandates that they place on the school district. Also, we hope that lawsuit would resolve the issue of adequacy, of the issue of efficiency and equity, that school finance system would become equitable to all schools. And that we also hope that the courts would stay involved in that process throughout that. You know, typically, I guess in the past, the courts have made a ruling and a decision and directed the legislature to change the legislation to make it constitutional, and then they've kind of left it alone and taken a hands-off approach until another lawsuit has been filed. So we're hoping that the legislature or the courts would stay involved to really hold the legislature's feet to the fire to make sure that whatever they do is meeting the constitutional requirements. What we have on our options are, as going forward, we have two basic options in order to increase the operating revenues for the school district. As you know, we have an optional 20% homestead exemption that is, and actually we're taking action on that tonight to address that, but that's an annual decision by the board to either keep that exemption or eliminate it or reduce it. And that provides about $36 million of tax revenue on the M&O side and about $16 million on the debt service side, if that were to be eliminated. The other option would be to hold a tax ratification election that would allow us to increase our maintenance and operations tax rate to $1.17. That alone would provide about $56 million of annual operating income to the district. So two options for the district as we move forward in the future, depending upon, again, what the impact to Cy-Fair is on that lawsuit.
Okay. Thank you, Stuart.
Did that answer your question? I know that was kind of a long...
It did.
Any other questions? Mr. Jackson.
Stuart, I have a series of questions, and you may not be prepared to answer all of these tonight, and if not, we can defer it to another board meeting. Part of the reason why my questions in this regard are so detailed is I attended a town hall meeting in the community, and an individual stood up indicating that that person was the representative of an elected state representative and made certain comments regarding this meeting tonight and the optional homestead exemption. And I had to meet with any number of people as they trailed out for a very extended period of time explaining what the facts are. So I want to make certain that the facts are very clear and straightforward. Many of these questions I already know the answer to, having spent 22 years on a mud board district, but I do think it's important to remind everybody who might be here or watching what the facts happen to be. So here we go. Listed on the agenda, there are 6 different exemptions. 3 of them are state mandated, 3 are local option. And I'm going to read these off very quickly. State mandated, $15,000. State mandated age 65 or older, $10,000. State mandated disabled, $10,000. Local option age 65 or older, $15,000. Local option disabled, $15,000. Local option percentage all homesteads, 20%. First question, what is the difference between state mandated and local option?
Well, a state mandated exemption are those that are specified in statute, and taxing entities are required by law to provide those to the residents, and particularly if they're homestead exemptions, then those homeowners. So it's a requirement that's set out in statute, well, the laws were developed and passed by the legislature. The local options are those that are allowed under law, but it is the taxing entity's option as to whether they want to provide those to the homeowners. They're not required, but it's the local taxing entity's option as to whether they want to do that.
Which districts in Greater Harris County offer the local option 20%?
Well, we do, obviously, Houston ISD, Spring Branch ISD, Deer Park, Galena Park, Goose Creek has a local, theirs is 10%, not a 20%. Everybody else is 20%. LaPorte has a 20%. Pasadena has a 10% optional homestead exemption. And Sheldon has a 20% optional homestead exemption.
What about Spring Branch?
I mentioned Spring Branch.
Okay, thank you. And with respect to Katy and Klein?
They do not.
Thank you. What percentage roughly of the districts in the state of Texas offer the local option 20%?
Well, I believe it's 218 school districts in the state of Texas offer a local option homestead, whether it's ranging from 5% to 20%. There are 1,025 school districts in the state, so roughly 21%, I would say.
Are any of these exemptions codified in the Constitution as an amendment to our state Constitution, or are these all legislative actions?
These are all legislative actions. It's all of a matter of law that is set out in the Texas Property Tax Code.
A while back at a Cy-Fair Chamber of Commerce subcommittee meeting that I attended, Representative Harless attended and distributed a schedule of select school districts. And on that schedule, there was identified certain facts as to the amount of funding on a per school district basis, but she also had identified the financial impact of the local option 20%. It was quite clear from my review of that schedule that the impact on Cy-Fair was far more severe than it was on the other districts that she had listed. And I asked her at the meeting, I said, doesn't that look like a financial penalty? And she very politely deferred to answer and just referred me back to the schedule to take a look at it. So I'll ask you the same question I asked Representative Harless. Does that look like a financial penalty to you? The fact that the financial impact on us is so much more severe than it is on the other districts?
Let me ask you a question. On the other districts that she was listing there, were they districts, other districts in the state, or other districts that specifically had an optional homestead exemption?
It was other districts that specifically had the optional homestead exemption. It included HISD and some of the others.
Okay. I think that, of course, our mix of property values is greater at the residential level. About 60% of our total taxable value, property value, is in the residential homestead. And I think that as we look at the other districts and compare their mix of values and how their residential values stack up against the total values in those districts, I think that we have a greater percentage of residents and homesteads than those other districts. And so the impact of the optional homestead exemption would be greater for us than some of those other districts.
All other things being equal, by having the optional homestead exemption, aren't we in effect shifting the tax burden from homeowners to our local businesses?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And let me kind of back up on that previous question, because when you talk about I guess the punitive effect to Cy-Fair on the optional homestead exemption, as it relates to the legislature, every time that we went to Austin this last legislative session and were testifying to either the House or the Senate Education Committee regarding the inequities in school finance, the committee members always asked, and they knew the answer to this, but they always asked Dr. Anthony, when he was testified, if we had an optional homestead exemption. And what they were doing, they were implying that we didn't have an argument when we went to Austin to ask for a better system or a more equitable finance system because we were not maximizing our tax collections. We weren't doing everything that that we had available to us in order to increase our revenues. So, you know, and also in the financial runs, when different financing systems were being proposed by legislators, particularly Representative Hochberg, he uses the Legislative Budget Board to develop the models, the financial runs, to show what the impact of his financial proposal would be on all of the school districts. And the LBB would always show our tax collections in those models as if we did not have an optional homestead exemption. And so the impact to Cy-Fair on those runs would always show that we were getting more money on state revenue than what we would actually receive because of the optional homestead exemption. You know, and under House Bill 1 in 2005, that set out really what is the foundation of the school finance system today, disregarded the optional homestead exemption and the tax collections that would have resulted in if that optional homestead exemption did not exist, which resulted in a calculation of target revenue that was about $300 per student less than what would have been calculated had we not have the optional homestead exemption. So I guess going back to your question about whether it was punitive to us, yes, it was, in terms of how it impacted us in the development of the foundation of the school finance system that we have today under House Bill 1. So I don't know if that helps to answer that question also, but.
Well, I'm always happy when somebody agrees with me about anything. We offer other exemptions as well. Do we offer any exemptions to our businesses?
We offer a Freeport exemption that under that exemption, it's for inventory property that is stored here for a period of time, and that is tax exempt on that inventory property. But that's really the only one for the businesses that we offer. We will be bringing a discussion in the August meeting regarding a foreign trade zone exemption for a particular company that wants to come in and develop and make an economic impact in our community. So those two exemptions are available to us to provide.
One question, and you may not have the figures with you tonight, but I'll ask it anyway. Of the 6 exemptions that are under review as it relates to our homeowners, what is the approximate dollar impact of each of the 6?
Well, the 20% optional homestead exemption represents about $3.5 billion of value.
And pardon me for interrupting, just on the M&O.
Okay. Okay. As I said, the 20% optional homestead exemption represents about $3.5 billion of taxable value, and representing about $37 million of M&O revenue. The $15,000 state mandated exemption is about $1.7 billion of value and about $17 million of M&O revenue. The over 65 and disabled combined, I think they're about a little over $1 billion, maybe $1.2 billion in value, representing about $13 million of M&O operating revenue annually.
And then for the local option, age 65 or older, 15,000, local option disabled, 15,000. Is that the 13 million you were in reference to, or did the 13 million apply to the state mandated?
I was combining, I think, in my mind, all of the state mandated and the local options of the over 65 and the disabled.
Okay, thank you. I do think it's important that as we vote on these, that we know the actual dollar amounts of what we're voting on. A question that I had to explain numerous times after that meeting, and I'll ask it in a bit of a crude fashion, but I think it'll get the job done. Why do we have to approve these? And why are we taking this action so late in June? Why couldn't we take this action in January or February? Why couldn't we take it in March or April?
We could take it in March or April. What the Texas Property Tax Code requires school districts to approve the homestead exemptions prior to July 1 of each year. And so each year's local options are standalone. The board can take action each year either to continue the exemptions at the same level, or they can you can elect to reduce or eliminate the local options exemptions. You also have the option, if you do that, if you reduce or eliminate in 1 year, in the next year you can reinstate those exemptions at any level that you choose, back to where they were before, or at some other level. So again, they're standalone. The decision has to be made prior to July 1st of each year.
A question that Don Ryan asked of you, and this is when you first presented the budget, the question that he asked is, did the budget that you presented to the board, did it require any modification of any of the exemptions? And do you recall what your answer was at that time?
Sure. The budget contemplated no change in the optional homestead exemptions, that we could keep the 20% optional homestead exemption as we have it today, as well as all of the other local options.
So basically, at no point in time have we contemplated doing away with any of these exemptions or modifying these exemptions based on the budget that was presented several months ago.
Correct, and what my recommendation is tonight for you to take action on is to keep those local options the way they are currently.
Very good, thank you. And to the board, I appreciate your forbearance in the amount of time that this took, but I think it was very important to go ahead and address these items.
Good questions.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Anybody else? Okay, can I have a motion, please? Ms. Hartley?
Second.
Ms. Woodall, all in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous, thank you. The board will consider approving a list of qualified financial institutions and brokers dealers that are authorized to engage in investment transactions with the district. Do we have any questions on this? Mr. Jackson?
Merely a perfunctoral ones. Have the conflict of interest statements of the investment officers been filed as it relates to the list of qualified financial institutions and brokers?
Yes, we have. Each of us have filed conflict of interest statements, and none of us have any disclosure items, by the way.
Very good. Thank you.
I have a motion. Mr. Jackson, do I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Ogletree, all in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous. The board will consider approving the interlocal agreement with the City of Houston radio system for police communication radio airtime. Do we have any questions on this? Can I have a motion?
I move that the board approve the interlocal agreement with the City of Houston radio system for police communications radio airtime.
Thank you, Dr. Ogletree. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Hartley. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. The board will consider a resolution approving the district's investment policy and investment strategy, the investment officers of the district, the independent sources of instruction relating to investment responsibility for the investment officers of the district, and investment training hours. Do we have any questions on this? Anyone? Can I have a motion, please? Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous. The board will consider approving a resolution for a commitment of the district's fund balance. Do I have any questions on this? Mr. Jackson.
Stuart, you ought to have fun answering these questions. Why in the world do we have to have a resolution to commit a portion of our unassigned fund balance? What are the dollar amounts of these reserves? And briefly describe them.
Well, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board Statement Number 54, which was promulgated, that went into effect this past year, or effective for the fiscal year ended for us June 30, 2011, requires that all governmental entities change the way they account and report their fund balances. And so GASB 54 also required us to adopt a policy that addressed the designation, certain designation of fund balance. And so last year we added a section in our policy that, our local policy that addressed the annual operating budget, and that we established that local fund balance policy. We're required by GASB 54 to report our fund balances in accordance with GASB 54 in our comprehensive annual financial report, and that we're required to have a resolution by the board to list by formal action any commitments to fund balance and designations to fund balance in our report. So for this, the year ending June 30, 2012, we are listing or asking you by resolution to approve the commitments to fund balance that relate to the deficit in our health insurance plan. As you know, and if you recall, I talked about in the budget presentation that we have a deficit there prior to closing that out and moving on to TRS Active Care. We're also asking that you approve by resolution any commitments that relate to the campus activity funds and the food service funds, just to make sure that those fund balances are committed formally, that they are for the intended purpose for which those funds are for, and not to be spent on any other purpose such as the M&O fund or anything like that. So essentially it's a requirement by GASB 54 that we do this.
And do you have the rough dollar amounts?
Well, the health fund is, as I mentioned in the budget presentation, is between $11 and $12 million that we will be committing on fund balance. We're estimating, of course, we won't know until we close out the end of the fiscal year, which we will be in the process of doing after tomorrow. But the campus activity funds, we're estimating the fund balance to be about $4.4 million. And then the food service fund balance, roughly $19 million.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Jackson, thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Hartley. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. The board will consider authorizing a superintendent or designee to negotiate and execute an interlocal agreement and related documents with the Harris County Municipal Utility District number 167 for the donation and installation of playground equipment, landscaping, and irrigation system at Emory Elementary School. We have any questions on this? Mr. Jackson.
Bob, would you ask to see if there's any members of this MUD district present tonight?
Are there any members of the MUD district present tonight?
I was primed and ready with my microphone in case you didn't ask. We do have some representatives, and I'll ask Roy Sprague and Claude Yost to stand up or step forward, because we do have, is Mr. Yaney? Yes, I was going to say, I think it's the MUD board president. And if you're thinking, wow, this kind of sounds familiar, irrigation, landscaping, this MUD did the exact same thing for us at McPhee. They are truly a community partner, and when we were saying thank you to them, one of the directors, for their gracious donations, I thought it was really the epitome of the commitment of this MUD board. Their response was, oh my goodness, this is a small token compared to the compared to the value and the things that you do in CFISD every day for our kids. And I thought, wow, that really, that really shows the heart and the community commitment for this this MUD board. We've got a lot of good partners in these other municipal utility and public utility district boards, but MUD 167, I have to say, in particular, has stepped up. So
And I would like to add with what Marnie's saying is this MUD is actually including the contribution with this MUD agreement that you guys would approve tonight. It's a total of over $240,000 that they've helped us at these 3 campuses. So we're real excited about the partnership, and Mr. Brad Yaney's been great to work with, and we'd like to thank him and his entire board of directors for MUD 167 for their generous contribution to assist our communities. So, McPhee, Sheridan. The 3 campuses are McPhee, Sheridan, as well as Emory. That's included in this proposal tonight.
Awesome. Thank you very much, sir. That is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. And please get that back to your board of directors at the MUD. Can I have a motion?
Bob, before you ask for a motion, I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but I'll go ahead and mention. What this MUD district has done is rather exceptional. There are other MUD districts that have also stepped up. And I don't know if our district would like to have some recognition of these MUD districts by AWBD, or whether it would be appropriate for a board member merely to go to one of the board meetings to present a certificate merely as a way of saying thank you, because this is very significant and it is much appreciated. So I just wanted to mention that it always works to say thanks, and maybe we can go the extra step to say thank you as well.
Mr. Jackson, is it okay I put you in charge of doing that? Is that okay? I think that's probably good. Mm-hmm. Okay, do I have a motion? Ms. Jackson, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Woodall, all in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. Thank you. H, the board will consider authorizing the superintendent or designee to execute real estate contracts, closing documents, and other related documents regarding the acquisition of real property for school purposes. Do we have any questions on this? Okay, can I have a motion?
I move.
Thank you, Ms. Woodall. I need a second. Thank you, Mr. Ryan. All in favor, raise your right hand. And that's unanimous. The board will consider authorizing the superintendent or designee to execute construction contracts and other related documents regarding the development of real property and the construction and/or renovation of school sites. Do we have any questions on this? Anyone? Can I have a motion? Thank you, Ms. Hartley. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Ryan. All in favor, raise your right hand. And that's unanimous. The board will consider authorizing the superintendent or designee to execute contracts and other related documents regarding the usage, rental, and/or advertising rights for CFISD properties. Do we have any questions on this? Anyone?
And what I would say, Mr. Covey, this and the next 2 items, if you'll see in the explanatory notes that I am updating prior authorizations that were done in 2006 in light of the new executive director at Region 4.
Okay.
Code 4, these were previous delegations to Pam and her role, and so we are updating them and changing them slightly.
Thanks for that explanation, Marnie. Can I have a motion? Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Ms. Woodall, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Ryan, thank you. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. The board will consider approving the budget amendments for, did I skip one? No. The board will consider approving the budget amendments for the period of April 1st, 2012 through June 30th, 2012. Any questions on this? Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Do I have a second? Is that you, Ms. Hartley? Thank you. All in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. Boy, that right hand's getting busy tonight, isn't it? The board will consider approving the tax refunds of $500 or greater for Cypress-Fairbanks ISD. Do I have any questions on that? Can I have a motion?
I move that the
Dr.
board
Ogletree?
approve the report for CIF SD tax refunds of $500 or greater in the amount of $95,366.94.
Dr. Ogletree, thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Ryan. Oh, Dr. Ryan.
That's right, baby.
All right. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. And you know, Dr. Ogletree, we can tell that you've been to leadership task because you're doing this motion the way you're supposed to. Thank you. The board will consider approving on second reading additions, deletions, and revisions to district policies. CW Local, naming facilities, revise. DH Local, employee standards of conduct, revise. DHE Local, employee standards of conduct, searches and alcohol/drug testing, revise. FDB Local, admissions, intra-district transfers, and classroom assignments, revise. FFH Local, student welfare, freedom from discrimination, harassment, or retaliation, revise. FFI Local, student welfare, freedom from bullying, revise. Do we have any questions on this?
Mr. Covey, I would like to request that we remove policy DHE local. We have determined that we really need to do some further revisions to this policy, and we will be bringing it back to you in August for final approval.
Marnie, do I need to go back and restate all of those again, and remove that, or we just say it's removed?
Just so amended, and then
Okay. All
make
right.
the motion as amended.
Okay, can I have a motion, please?
Yes,
Bob.
Mr. President.
You have a question? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. I can take the motion and then ask the question.
Yes.
I forgot my little, cheat sheet. Go ahead.
Okay. I move that the board approve on second reading additions, deletions, and revisions to district policies CW Local, DH Local, FDB Local, FFH Local, and FFI Local. Is that right?
Okay. As second, and the question.
Okay, you have a question.
I do. On page 118, and then also 119, and then we roll over to page 120. And I'm going to read the phrase that I have a question about, and then I'll ask the question. The district shall not permit individuals, for-profit organizations, or groups which do not have IRS nonprofit status to use its school facilities. High school track shall be used only for running and walking activities. Other types of activities shall not be permitted. The actual football, soccer field, and high school stadiums shall not be used by non-district organizations for the playing of athletic events. Middle school football fields may be used by youth sports organizations in accordance with administrative regulations.
What does that have to do with? Yeah, that's not on this motion.
Remember what I said? Because it doesn't pertain to this section.
You've got a motion in second.
I think I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, that's unanimous. I was with you, Tom. I thought you were doing great. The board will consider approving on dual reading additions, deletions, and revisions to the district policies. CH Local, Purchasing and Acquisition, revise. FFAF Local, Wellness and Health Services, Care Plans, add. Do we have any questions on this? Can I have a motion, please?
I move that the board approve on dual reading, additions, deletions, and revisions to district policies, CH Local, Purchasing and Acquisition, revise. FFAF Local, Wellness and Health Services, Care Plans, add.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Hartley. All in favor, raise your right hand. And that's unanimous. The board will consider approving on first reading additions, deletions, and revisions to district policies. GKD Local, whoops, that K got me. Community Relations, non-school use of school facilities, revise. Okay, do we have any questions? Mr. Jackson, okay, go ahead.
For what I said before.
I think Pam's going to field that question for
I'll
you.
be happy to, and Marty Edwards is in the audience and can add to it if you have any additional questions. I think you had asked if this was a new policy. The particular sections that you referenced are not new. The reason that we have some controls on what uses we can have, both of our tracks and also of our high school football fields, are as a result of the two things, really. The reason that we only allow nonprofit organizations to use our facilities and those organizations that are focused on students is because of supply and demand. We have multiple requests from nonprofit organizations and from student groups that support students, and to allow for-profit entities to compete with those student groups and those nonprofit groups would mean that they did not have as much access. So that's one reason. The reason specifically that we don't allow use for some activities of our tracks and of our high school football fields is because of the damage that might occur. And when you're talking about a high school football field, you really can't have excessive use of that field. You have to have a time when you allow it to be dormant and you allow it to rejuvenate itself. So that's the reason why we have those particular controls. Now, the changes to this policy are actually identified later. I don't think you ask any specific questions about that, but the changes that we are asking related to this policy are really just going to allow us to have some additional opportunities for marketing at Pridgeon Stadium. Is there anything I left out, Marty?
No, I think you got it.
Okay.
And of course, part of the reason why I asked those questions is that this policy always causes a little angst within the community, and we just need to remind ourselves what that policy is. A very quick question. I presume that most of this is meant to pertain to 501c3s, but the way that it's been drafted, it will also encompass 501c4s. And Stuart, I presume that you've advised management of the difference between those two, and management's happy that we don't need to make a distinction. Very good, thank you.
And Marty, you might share with them what 501c4 organizations, what they primarily use, and that's that would be like community organizations, that sort of thing.
Right, and they mainly use school cafeterias for meetings. Most of the athletic groups are the 501c3 groups, which are the youth-oriented groups using our fields.
And then I have one other question, which I think is in this section. However, I'm certain somebody will remind me if I'm not in the proper section. We do have 2 or 3 pages on the use of the Richard E. Berry Educational Support Center. Nowhere in this did I see any changes permitting us to have enhanced use of the Berry Center. Did I misread this?
I should let you answer this one, Marty, instead of me. No, sir, there are, contrary to some of the news reports recently, there are no recommendations from the administration for any changes in use of the Berry Center.
I forgot where we were.
Back to you, Bob.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Christine.
Thank you, Pam, for explaining that. I was going to ask the question of the history of the nonprofit use, because I know as a parent, you know, my child might be part of a group that they don't want to go use it for profit, they just want to go showcase a talent. And I was wondering about the differentiation of the nonprofit versus profit when they're not really going to sell anything or make any money. They just want to use the facility to maybe showcase a talent, a dance recital, a track meet, a whatever it may be.
Sure. And I'm going to let Marty talk to you about the dance studios, because that's an issue that we have had lots of questions about. But I might remind folks that this really relates to anything other than the Berry Center, because the Berry Center is available for individuals and for profit groups to come and rent it for whatever purpose they have. But I think that the reason that we've had to limit to nonprofits, and we especially, for some of our facilities, limit to nonprofits that are providing a service for students. And the reason for that is because we have so many of those organizations who want to have access that we believe that should be our first priority.
And Pam's correct. We have a huge amount of use of our schools, even limiting it to nonprofit organizations, and we even limit those groups even further, that they have to be 80% Cy-Fair ISD kids. If we opened it up to anybody, to for-profit, you can imagine the request for use of facilities, mainly because you can use our facilities cheaper than you can own your own facility. So we would have lots of organizations that, even if they deal with kids, an example might be karate, classes that want to use our facilities or other types of activities that kids do after school that are for profit. Just with the nonprofit groups, our facilities are used almost daily in every campus. So we have a huge amount of use, and we do limit it to that nonprofit group for that purpose, so we can make sure that it's available for Cy-Fair kids for those nonprofit organizations.
Thank you for that information.
Sure.
Okay, we're back at O. Can I have a motion for that, please?
I'll move, and I'll even read it.
Would you?
I move that the board approve on first reading additions, deletions, and revisions to district policies, GKD, local community relations, non-school use of school facilities revised.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Woodall. All in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. The board will consider approving the minutes of the June 11, 2012 regular meeting. Are there any questions on this?
Bless you.
Oh. No questions.
I think that was a motion.
Can I have a motion?
I move that the board approve the minutes of the June 11, 2012 regular meeting as presented.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Ogletree, all in favor, raise your right hand. And that's unanimous. The board will consider approving the superintendent's recommendation to rescind the notice to Jennifer Stark regarding discharge of her employment with the district. Does the board feel like we need a closed session on this? Okay. And I have a motion, please.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Trustees rescind its notice of proposed termination of employment to Jennifer Stark.
Do I have a second? Mr. Ryan, all in favor, raise your right hand. That's unanimous. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, you've got something?
Just before we adjourn, I just want to say one thing that, and I know we've celebrated her many times over the last few days, but this is Dr. Pam Wells' last meeting, and on Monday, she'll be the new Region 4 Educational Service Center Director, and Executive Director. We're extremely proud of her, and certainly she'll be missed here, but she's still going to be in our school district, and we look forward to working with her closely through the Service Center. So thank you, Pam.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.